Hello, Steve White, TrekBoy89 for SteveArts89. Well, this is like the fourth attempt of this video I've done. They've all turned into rants, but I'm just going to keep it very basic, and I'll do a proper scripted video later on because I do want to talk about this subject. Okay, I just watched Star Trek Lower Decks, episode 9. I did a review, and I was walking around afterwards feeling kind of traumatized like I normally do after watching Lower Decks, and I'm thinking, why does this rattle me so much? What is it? Why am I so triggered? Why are Star Trek fans so sensitive to this sort of show? And I sort of realized what it is, and it's fairly simple. Basically, if you're a Star Trek fan, you grew up, and let's just distinguish the groups. There were the original Trekkers who came up during the run of Star Trek in the 60s, and they were treated like trash. They were treated like freaks, and they established the first real publicly sort of known sort of fandom. They really sort of established the whole cult fandom thing, and it was very hard for them. And they did get called Trekkies, which they saw as derogative, so they coined the term Trekkers or Trekkors, and they demanded to be called that out of respect and not be called Trekkies, and distinguish the two. Now, eventually, Star Trek fandom and Trekkies become normalised, and it didn't mean what it used to mean. So newer fans, fans of Star Trek and repeats and the movies and Next Gen and that, they called themselves Trekkies, and it wasn't really an issue. There were a few old school Trekkers who would hold on and demand to be called Trekkers, but most referred to themselves as Trekkies and didn't think twice about it, because it just, that dynamic didn't exist anymore. We weren't mocked in that way by the general public, mostly because we made a lot of money for Star Trek and that was seen as successful, whereas when the original Star Trek was cancelled and people were still fans of it, they were seen as losers. I think that was part of it. But as Star Trek really thrived in syndication and the animated series came out and the movies came out and Next Gen and all that, it was established, we were validated basically, and then being a Trekkie wasn't that much of a bad thing for the most part. Then we have the new Trek fans, and they're the people who came on with the JJ films and the action films, and they sort of have their own category, because for the most part I think they kind of got Star Trek, but the films just spoke to them more, and you could sort of like both. You could watch the films because they're a different universe, and then you watch the series, and some people who weren't that familiar with the series maybe then watched the series after the films, and people who did grow up watching the TV series and the other movies weren't as bothered by the new films because they were just sort of like action tentpole films. It was okay. So that sort of group's okay. But then we got to the problem, which is the Drekkies, the Star Trek Discovery fans who are only Discovery fans, who think Discovery is the only Star Trek and any other Star Trek before is just trash and stupid, and anyone who doesn't like Discovery are racist, sexist man-babies who hate Star Trek and hate everyone, and just this dynamic is really ugly. So those are our categories. You've got the old school Trekkers, the Trekkies, which is like the general term. Then you've got the new Trek fans, who are the ones who don't really get the original Star Trek for the most part, but don't really have a problem with it. And then you have the Drekkies who hate Star Trek. And yes, there are Star Trek fans who do like Discovery. I'm not saying everyone who likes Discovery hates Star Trek. But the majority of the vocal do. The vocal majority do. And if you were a Star Trek fan in the 80s or the 90s or the noughties, you basically got made fun of for liking Star Trek, and you got made fun of by people who weren't intelligent enough to understand Star Trek. They didn't get it, so they resented it and felt threatened by it and by you because you got something, you understood something they didn't get. And this was very threatening for them, so they would attack. They were basically like the monkeys in the zoo or the crazy people in the asylum throwing feces. That's basically what these people were. And as a Star Trek fan, you got that a lot in the 80s and 90s and noughties. You grew up being made fun of. I got made fun of and bullied because I was gay and an artist and just being different. And Star Trek was part of that. And you do come out of that with some damage. And it's one thing to be made fun of or insulted by external, like Star Wars fans or general science fiction fans, films like Galaxy Quest and Saturday Night Live and stuff like that, making fun of Star Trek. That's one thing. But when Star Trek itself makes fun of Star Trek and insults you, it's just bizarre. It's like when you were being made fun of from the outside, you still had your little Star Trek bubble that you could go hide in the repeats and console each other while you waited for the next movie or the next TV series when there were droughts. But now we can't even do that because that bubble has been invaded by the Drekkies. And they, like I said, they hate Star Trek and they hate Star Trek fans because they see them as being pretentious and arrogant at best, or racist, homophobic, dinosaur man babies at worst. And you just have this really hideous dynamic that used to be generic science fiction fans who didn't get Star Trek would resent you and attack you, or Star Wars fans who thought they were better and didn't get Star Trek would attack you and resent you. But now you have people within technically the Star Trek community, fans of a Star Trek show, and then even now producers and writers who are making these shows who hate Star Trek and hate Star Trek fans are now trolling the Star Trek fans within the shows. And that's what Lower Decks is. Lower Decks is basically a piece of feces that these institutionalized Drekkies or Star Trek fans are throwing at us. And that's why it's like re-traumatizing. It's like it's just you. I don't watch Star Trek to be made fun of and insulted and embarrassed, and that's what, and being trolled basically, and that's what this show does. It trolls Star Trek fans, and you feel like you're back on the playground, being made fun of like when you're a kid. And you know what? People play down that sort of stuff, but it stays with you. That's why so many people have those issues, because those are the years that where we develop who we are as a human, as a person, and the things that you sort of struggle through in those times tend to be what define you later in your adult life. And some people say, "I'll grow up," but that's just the truth. That's why it always comes down to what your mother did or what happened to you on the playground. And that's the dynamic that we have in Star Trek now. We have this divided community, and one is very aggressive and bullying, trying to get rid of the older fans. And the sad thing is the companies are behind it because they want to get rid of us too. They don't understand that. They still don't understand that we're the only ones who actually buy the merchandise and actually keep them in business. They think the new Trek fans and the Drekkies who don't buy merchandise, who don't care, because they're just a different type. They don't have that allegiance, because Star Trek fans were loyal to Star Trek because they wanted to maintain that universe that they could escape to, this wonderful place that you... And I didn't go into this, I went into this the other video. Why did we love Star Trek? Because it gave us a future that we wanted to be in, a place that we could go in our imagination that was better than where we are now, because most of us were suffering through horrible lives and horrible times, and we had this wonderful place to go to and escape to. Star Trek was escapism, escapist TV and fantasy, and we need it, and we've always needed it, and we'll always need it. So to have it taken away and then have it turned into something to attack us is just really disturbing. And that's the reality that we seem to have with Star Trek, with not so much with New Trek. The 3 films weren't that bad, but Discovery and the Discovery fans, the Drekkies, it's just surreal and ugly, and I just want it to end. I just want these people to, I want the producers to realise they're not making any money out of these people, they're not selling any merchandise, that's where the money's always been, and start marketing for us again and attracting new fans like us, younger fans like us, and hopefully those people will go back to Star Wars or general science fiction shows that they used to spend their time with and leave us alone. That's what I'm hoping will eventually happen. But and I know you're just swimming in fanboy tears and you're loving it. If you're not one of us, but eventually that shit's going to dry up, and you're going to have to go somewhere else. That's what I have faith in. I'm just waiting for it to happen, because I'm so sick of watching Star Trek and feeling like I've lost something and feeling insulted and re-traumatized. Basically is how I feel whenever I watch Discovery in that, on some level. And no, I'm not like sitting in the corner in the fetal position like rocking backwards and forwards in tears or something. It's not like that, but it's just an awareness of that attitude, and that basically that's what the fandom is now. So yeah, that side. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you have felt this same thing, if you grew up and had the same sort of issue where you were sort of made fun of from Star Trek, and you sort of have that sort of awareness, and you do see the way that the Drekkies have come in and the way they are attacking Star Trek fans and attacking the prior Star Trek shows and the actors and everything, feel free to comment and let me know, because I've seen enough comments in that in the Facebook groups and the chats and the other websites and that, but it'd be nice to have some in my own comments section. But I'm going to go. Thanks.